Okay, good morning, folks. I'm up here, but camera's here, so sorry. Hello. Today, we have been going through the last couple of days setting up Quantiloop. Don't think of it as a looper. Setting up drum apps. Think of it as drum apps because they are. And looking at tying all this together. Hardware, software, all in one. And a controlling brain that sits on top of all that, which talks English, French, and human instead of PC commands, CC commands, and all that. Which is really cool. Is the idea is you bring up a song. I don't know if you can see that, but you can embed in this thing English language commands to say, I'm going to play Dust in the Wind. Go to the Helix. Go to this folder. Just like you were navigating. So go to that folder, jump in, go to that preset, jump in, go to snapshot 3, and then back to the software, open me the drummer, change it to straight 8s on a window with a boss and drum pad. I'm not finished. Open me up Quantiloop. Jump into this bank for rock. This 3A1, which is going to be Dust in the Wind. And I can go in here and save individual loops or samples or one-shot hits. A one-shot hit is where you hit play and you have a harmony or something, I don't know, whatever you want, like a cowbell, you can put cowbell there. You can put stuff. So if you're playing live and you want to get something really funky, I don't know, make Dust in the Wind in an electro EDM thing with samples going over it and all that kind of stuff. There's no way live you can do all that. You could do this with a DAW, but do you really want a computer up on stage with you? What I want with me when I'm going around is one iPad, maybe a phone, and my little Wii Stomp. This were a big one, but I'm not performing here. I'm just like every average normal guy who's composing and doing stuff, and you want to add in different flavors and different spices to your toys. This can get complicated as hell, but there's a way to uncomplicate your life where you do all the work up front and you have a database that deals with all this, and that would be OnSong, which is where we were before. So this is the idea. You have your music, you have your chord charts, you have your lyrics, and this goes out and sets up everything for you. At the start, you hit play. If you have just a backing track, you play just a backing track. If you want to create something totally unique, kind of like what Aaron Short does, he does covers of songs, but his arrangements are his. You can add in effects, or if you want a drum looping, you put in your own drum, but you're not going to use the same exact one that was done there. You're going to make it yours, or you're going to write your own music and compose your own stuff. So that's the mission. That's here is the solution. And we need to talk about how it actually works, because these are concepts where, as you start building this stuff, you need to really get the base concepts down. So, number one, this is going to sound so simple, but it really is that simple. Presets. You can get to these things in two different ways. And I don't know what the language for it would be, so I'm going to invent my own. One would be absolute recall, total recall. What that does is, to get to a bank, you can send in a CC message or a PC message with these most significant bits and least significant bits. If you've never seen that, MSB, LSB, that determines 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, a means of getting into the right folder. Be it here, or be it in a drum app, or be it in a looping thing where you're holding all these phrases, or any piece of hardware or software, it's basically the same idea. You have a bank. Under the bank, you have a list of presets, usually 127. They can be named 1 to 127, 0 to 127, 1 to 128, you know, A123, B123, it can be B1 to 9. There's a billion and one different combinations of that, and that will get confusing as all hell. So, to get to where you want, you either need to do an absolute recall, CC, PC, CC, start, or you can do a relative one if you're there composing. You know, you're like, okay, let's go, boom, straight to that particular track, da 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 da. And then you think, yeah, I don't really like that. Rather than go and call the next very specific track, you can say, take me to one above it or take me to one below it. Now we're going to call that relative movement. Because if you start out in a track and you call up number 4, dark and lush here, and you decide, okay, around that I've got similar ideas that are slightly different, you can go up and down. So you can go back to 3 or 2 or 5, 6, 7. That's fine. If you suddenly decided, okay, I actually need to get down to 126, way down the end, you're going to be scrolling forever. Relative calls don't work. Absolutes will, but you haven't decided that. So really what you can do here is take a much more productive thing, your finger, scroll through on screen, boom, select the new one you want, try them out with your hands, and then go back to the guitar. Remember, there's going to be occasions where in composing you have all the time in the world, but the more time you organize your life, the faster you can get to where you're going and get back to playing. When you're playing live, you need to have relative moves. You need to have all of your life organized. So, sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But this is simple PC commands and banks. It's incredibly interesting stuff. What OnSong does for all of this nonsense is you're going to have to translate it into CCs, PCs, CCs, but you do it here in the database itself. Und then, when you want to start making something happen, a mini global, you can add events. Think of this as the same thing. You can type in here, set me up for dust in the wind. You can tag it under dust in the wind. You can tag it under wind, dust, da da da. Country or rock or whatever genre you want. Songs to drive people crazy. You've got a whole database. And then you can add in all these little steps, your CCs, PCs, da da da. Not just for the helix, but for the drum machines, the loops, the samples, all that stuff. But instead of going through here, and you're going to be able to see that or not, tick here. Instead of using the channels, which are MIDI channels, which mean one thing or the other works, you can actually name them what your stuff is. So I've got my stomp on 4, got my iridium on 3, sim 1 on 2, MC6 controller on the floor, so all of the foot pedal things come up, jazz drummer on 5, 6, 7, 8, and then Quantaloop on 10. Once you've done that, change the program change, you can put in all your names here, all of your presets that you've got in the Helix, or all of the presets that you've got in whatever container that organizes your sounds, be it software or hardware. They're all computers anyway. They all have normal human names. So from here, you can go out and say, instead of, CC this, PC that, blah, 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 screw all that. You can literally say, give me dust in the wind. And when you say, give me dust in the wind, you can say, hey, call me out my dust in the wind thing. But I want to play it with an Indian sitar. and, set the variax to sitar. I want to do this in a beatboxing groove. And I want a tablet to do the drums. And by the way, give me a red and blue light show. You can literally say it in 5 terms that are relatively human, and all of those are macros which go out and expand into shopping lists that organize your system. That is incredibly cool. So take that as an idea. Obviously, you build that up in small little steps, little Lego bricks, and you're going to go through and, one, figure out the banks, figure out the presets, figure out the CC commands, put it all in here, do little bits, but it may sound like a lot of work the first time, but down the road, it's kind of like object-oriented programming. You no longer have to do that more than once, and you can completely switch the thing around. So if I'm there with my tablet EDM'd, dust in the wind, on a sitar, and I decide, nah, I don't like that, you can say, throw in a Marshall, and it changes just the components you want. And you're not sitting here dialing in, tweaking out, checking and twisting. You're just giving it a relatively human command and then see what happens with it. And if that's getting you in the right direction, cool. And then if you need to tweak, you can tweak a little bit. But you're talking about navigating a world of sound right there. And because this whole thing is modular, any part of that can be stripped out or any other part can be added in. And the hardware doesn't really matter. You can change it. So what I do is I work out all this stuff on a big boy Helix. The bigger the better. Mash it down to something that's going to work as tight as possible, and then transfer it to the old stump, which is over there. I'm not going to move the camera. So you have something as compact as possible. As all of this hardware evolves and Helixes get smaller and more compact, you will have less to carry around. You will have less weight and more fun. Here you can take whatever size screen you want and do this so that you can manage all this. The actual sounds in the database, the actual quantity loop and all of that stuff, it's modular. You can split it between processors. So you can take an iPhone or another one of these, mount it permanently on your rig, and this can then wirelessly command all those things. So you have a very short cable and you can go and sit anywhere. You don't have to be attached to the gear. This is the concept of the Mini Dream Rig. Store and recall banks, presets, and all that stuff. That's a massive part of it. It's a really simple thing. Not that complicated, but it's a basic building block and one that you should probably look into because it's a great way to organize all of your folders here and shift them out and move stuff around without having to be stuck in HXFX moving all this stuff around. HXEdit, sorry. You can do the work and leave it there and then recall it. Think of it like the shortcuts you have in Windows with a, pointer to a directory somewhere. Same thing. Makes your life easy. Ciao.